Welcome back to Moby's Kitchen, and tonight we're going to be making the famous Mississippi chuck roast. You've all probably seen it done a million times. If you haven't, and this is your first time seeing it, it's delicious. It's simple to make. All you need is a slow cooker or a pressure cooker. Tonight I'm going to be using a pressure cooker for our version. I do a couple little additions and little things that I think help enhance the flavor that are not in the original recipe, and I'll show you those as we go. But here are our ingredients tonight. We've got beef broth. We have about 6 pounds of chuck roast. We've got a stick of butter, ranch seasoning, au jus gravy mix, a whole jar of pepperoncinis, whole pepperoncinis. We've got a yellow onion and a couple cloves of garlic. All right, let's get started. Okay, so our first step, we're gonna dice up this yellow onion here. You can do kind of a thicker dice. So I've got it halved and I've got the outer skin removed. You're just gonna make slits into it about 90% of the way through. You don't wanna cut through the root. So, and then you just kind of cut this way. Watch your fingers. There we go. And repeat for the second half. And you're all done. Our next step is to crush some garlic. So we've got 2 cloves here. We'll start with 1. You just take your knife, point the blade side away from you, and you just kind of give it a quick little pop like that, and it should release your skin. This looks like maybe it was like an older garlic, so it's got kind of that stem going, which is totally fine. Fine to eat, and there you go. Then you're just gonna leave it whole like that. We're gonna put it right in there. So there we go. And it should come right out. If it breaks apart, that's fine too. Not a big deal. Oh, Kimber is crying back there. She's ready for food. All right, we'll be right back with you. Okay, so we've got our chuck roast out of the wrapper here. And what we're gonna do is just kind of cut this into thirds. It's a little bit easier to deal with. And then if there's any, like sometimes chuck roast has kind of this hard fat right here that's just not gonna render. You can cut some of this out or you can leave it. I like to cut some of the real hard fat out. As you can see, there's not like a lot of meat on it and it's not soft. It's not gonna render really well. So I like to just kind of go through and kind of trim some of that out. Like I said, you don't have to do it. If a little bit of meat comes out, that's fine too. So that's probably fine there. Maybe this little piece, trim this down here. You want some of the fat because that's flavor. And as we go through here, you know, that's okay there. There's not a lot. We could, if you want, you could trim that off. You want some of this fat, like I said, though. But, you know, there's like a piece here. This is real hard, woody feeling fat. So what we're gonna do is take that out of there. And this piece we're good here. We can put, and just continue that process with all your meat. You'll see this is kind of the first part of a 2-part series. We're going to be doing something really special with the leftovers here. So this is kind of step 1, and that's why we have 6 pounds of it. You don't have to cook 6 pounds of it unless you want to do what we're going to do with it. It's a surprise video that's going to be coming out after this one. Okay, so we've got all of our chuck roast sliced up, our veggies sliced. Now it's time to preheat our pressure cooker. So you're gonna have the lid off for this setting, and you're gonna hit the saute button here. You wanna make sure that your time's on 30 minutes. Mine happens to be there. Once you hit the saute button, it'll warm up and you'll hear it. It'll give you maybe a little indicator. We've got it on more right there, so we want it on the highest setting. And then we're gonna give it about 3 or 4 minutes to preheat. And then we're gonna add a little bit of avocado oil, which I didn't mention. You could use olive oil if that's what you have as well. Just to help the meat not stick quite as bad in the bottom. So let's let this preheat and we'll be right back with you. All right, so we've had our pressure cooker preheating on the saute setting for about 5 minutes now. I'm gonna show you a little trick to find out if it's ready to go. You wanna put a little water on your finger. You can hear that. When it starts sizzling like that, that means it's ready to go. So we're ready to add a little bit of avocado oil. We're gonna do a tablespoon or 2 in there. Let that get hot here. And we're gonna start putting this, I'm kind of stirring the oil around in here so it's nice and coated. And we're gonna do this in batches here. So we've got it cut into smaller chunks here. The goal here is not to cook this, it's to sear it to give it a little bit of caramelization, some browning effect, because that adds some extra flavor in my opinion, rather than just putting this in. The original recipe, you could just put all this in and then call it good. But I like to do this step. Yes, it's extra, but I think it adds another layer of flavor. So let's start, and like I said, do this in batches so you get nice contact with the pan here. That's what you want to hear. Got some of these little pieces we can get in there. And that's about as much as you want right there. And then you're gonna let this go on each side for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, just till you get some nice browning. It doesn't, like I said, you're not trying to cook it here, you're just trying to get some nice caramelization. Okay, so we're gonna flip our chuck roast here. And as you can see, there's a little bit of caramelization here. That's all we're looking for, nothing fancy. We're not trying to cook it. Kind of move all the pieces around so you can get each side coated up. There's some good caramelization there. And then we're gonna let that go for another 3 minutes or so, and then we'll put the next batch in, and I'll be back with you when we're done with all the meat. On a side note, I wanna tell you, we first heard about this recipe from my mother-in-law, Sharon. She said, have you heard of Mississippi chuck roast? And we hadn't heard of it, and she told us about it, and she made it for us. And I was just blown away with the weird ingredients coming together, like a ranch packet and an au jus packet, to make something so good. And I wanted to share it with you because we've kind of taken it further another step at this point, and then you'll see our surprise video that comes out after what we do with the leftovers. Okay, so we've got all of our chuck roast browned off, and we're gonna put our onion that we diced earlier in here. We've got the beef fat, a little bit of that avocado oil left. There's no need to add any more oil here. Let's make sure we get all of them out of there. And we're gonna cook these till they're about translucent, maybe about 4 or 5 minutes. Stir them up, get all the oil coated on there. All right, we're still on the saute setting. And let's give this 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll be right back. Okay, make sure to keep stirring your onions so they don't burn. Just keep them moving for this next 3 to 5 minutes as they become translucent. So if you leave them sitting, they'll burn on one side. We don't want them to burn. We just want them to start caramelizing a little bit there. Okay, so we've had our onion sauteing here for about 5 minutes. We're gonna add in our crushed garlic. Saute for about 30 seconds. Just get this garlic fragrant. We're using this garlic for a little added flavor here, so just stir it in. You can see our onions have started the caramelization process, and that's all we're looking for. And you can see there's a lot of those little burn bits on the bottom. So our next step, we're gonna add our liquids in there, and that's gonna take care of it. Now, when you make this recipe in a slow cooker, you don't need to add the liquids. However, for what we're gonna be doing, if you wanna do our surprise video, you do need the liquids. So you're gonna need the liquids if you're gonna be making these for leftovers for what we're gonna be using them for. If you're just making this and you're gonna have this as your main meal and you're gonna have it the same as leftovers, in a slow cooker, you don't need the liquids. So a pressure cooker always needs some kind of liquid in order for it to work properly. Okay, so that's enough time to, about 30 seconds, maybe a little more, the garlic, and I can smell it. It's super fragrant, it smells so good. Now we're gonna add our beef broth. We've got 3 cups of beef broth. I put about 2.5 cups of it. That looks about right to me. And then we're gonna scrape the bottom here. We're still on saute, so we're trying to get kind of all of our fond off the bottom here. That's what that stuff's called, that little burn stuff, because there's so much flavor in it. So we've got a nice flat wooden spoon here, and we're scraping. All right. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our jar of pepperoncinis and we're gonna pour the whole thing in there. Now, if you don't love pepperoncinis, you can just put a few in. In this house, pepperoncinis are king, and we're gonna add that with all the juice. Sometimes they get stuck, you gotta get them going a little bit. Can't have too many pepperoncinis. All right, and then we're gonna add our meat. So you gotta kind of nuzzle it in there. Everyone, there's a lot of meat. Like I said, if you're just making this, you don't have to make 6 pounds of meat. If you're just making it for one meal and maybe a day of leftovers, you don't have to make this much meat. You could do 2 pounds or 3 pounds. I've got 6 for a reason. Right. Kind of wedge everything in. It doesn't matter in the pressure cooker now if everything's kind of wedged in, because we're not sauteing, we're gonna pressure cook next. All right, we've got it all in there. Now we're going to add our au jus packet. Just kind of sprinkle it in there. Our ranch packet, same thing. And we're gonna put our whole stick of butter in there. Now it seems like a lot, but you remember there's 6 pounds of meat, so whole stick of butter is not that much. Break it in half there. And then we're gonna kind of push it down, get some of that liquid incorporated with the powders there. And then we're gonna hit cancel here because we're still on saute. So let's hit cancel. Now it's into the off setting. All right, everything's ready to go. It's incorporated a little bit. We're gonna take our lid. That's on lock, and then make sure that your seal on the back is on sealing and not venting. And then we're gonna go pressure cook, and we're going to do 1 hour. So bear with me while we get up there. We're halfway there. One hour. So once we get there and we're on the highest setting of pressure cook, you'll see it will click on after about 5 or 6 seconds. And it will show you that it's on, and the 1 hour the time clock doesn't really start until it preheats or whatever it does inside there. I don't know if that's the right terminology. So it takes about 15 minutes to build up the pressure and start the clock. So now you just forget about it and you go on, you make your side dishes, or you go about your night and enjoy that. But we're gonna enjoy some delicious Mississippi chuck roast in about an hour and a half. Okay, so our pressure cooker indicated about 15 minutes ago that the time was up. And what we're gonna do, you wanna do a natural release for at least 15 minutes, and it's been about that time. So the rest of the way, we're going to turn our vent, we're gonna open our vent and let it vent out and finish. And once the pressure's been released, we can open this and look at how beautiful this meat's gonna be. So this is always fun. Okay, our pressure cooker is depressurized, for lack of a better term. Let's open this up here. The smell in here is incredible. So that's what it looks like. Look at all those pepperoncinis in there. It's still super hot. Let's take a piece out. Let's see, let's grab. God, it's hard to even grab a piece. Look at how tender this is. Look at that. It just literally I'm barely putting any pressure. It just comes apart. So tender. Let's get one of these too. I think these go so good with it. Look at that. That just falls right apart. I gotta do a taste test here. Let's get a little bit of the meat, some pepperoncini. It's gonna be burning hot, so let's give it a minute here. My mouth is watering in anticipation for this bite. Okay, here we go. It's hot. It's so unbelievably tender. It's hard to believe how tender that got. if you like pepperoncinis and the flavor that pepperoncinis provide, this recipe is for you because it has a very strong pepperoncini. There's a little bit of heat in the back of the throat, but nothing too crazy. The meat is just fall apart tender, as you can see. You've got all this au jus in here that you can use that you're gonna pour on your plate. This goes really well with the side of mashed potatoes and maybe some green beans. It's just perfect. And it's so simple to make, and I can't believe that ranch packets and au jus packets and what you saw what I put in it make this delicious of a dish. Anyway, thank you for stopping by our channel, and remember, like and subscribe for more recipes.